Losers quit when they fail, and winners fail until they succeed.
This means going a little slower on day one, and
that was the quote that hit me so hard yesterday when I was listening to Olympic gold medalist Nick Baumgartner give a keynote speech at a conference I was attending. It was so inspiring to me, and then that quote hit me so hard. But in order to understand why, I've got to go back 2 days earlier to volunteering at the Cocodona 250 ultramarathon. Now, this was a last minute thing. I decided to volunteer as a live stream camera person with the idea of going out with a camera in hand and running side by side with some of the absolute legends and greats of this sport.
I'm at the Crown King aid station, and I'm running up to find service to see if I can live stream.
So I left late Sunday night after being with my family all day, drove as far as I could to Page, Arizona before I had to sleep in the back of my car, get up at 5 a.m. after 4 hours of sleep, and keep going to Crown King to be there on time, which was a good thing because the pack was coming out hot so fast. And I got to see the top 20 runners as they were coming into the aid station after about 35 miles. But wow, that top 20 would change drastically over the next days as I watched hours of live stream as I drove back home and as I've been working this week watching that race unfold. It is phenomenal. But I want to talk to you about 3 things. 1, not letting failure define who we are. 2, what is your big, hairy, audacious goal? Setting massive goals. And 3, is grit earned, or are you born with it? Because I have a theory and I have some strong opinions about it. But first, let's talk about failure. In 2020, before COVID went crazy, I was back in the US. I was living abroad in Hong Kong, came to LA for a work meeting, and had a chance to go to an LA Lakers game. LeBron James was playing that night. He came out and he entertained. From the pregame, ran over to the corner, threw his hands up, people were cheering. And it was awesome to see one of the greatest basketball players play his sport. But there also was kind of an entertainment feel to it. We're in LA, the lights, the fireworks, it was very much a show. But there's something different when I'm walking up a dirt road in a high mountain desert town that looks like a scene from a Western, and I see Courtney Dauwalter running down that hill. She is one of the most genuine, nicest people that I've ever met, and she was booking it. At one point in the race, she takes first place, and the live stream chat blew up. Oh, this is the year Courtney's going to take first overall. And there was just a lot of excitement and belief. What happened later, nobody was expecting. I rocked up, and I was too early to be an athlete that was coming in already. And it was also a no pacer zone. So a lot of people were curious, why is this guy so ready to run? And he shouldn't be. But when I explained I was there to live stream, they were super excited. They thought that was really cool. And it was a good thing I was ready because Hillary Yang and the team had a static cam there, and she was doing amazing interviews. That whole team is awesome. It was really fun to work with them. I didn't do a very good job, but some of that was beyond my control. I didn't have any service. And so I knew that if I wanted to see these runners and be a part of their race and document it, I had to put in some work myself. So 2 miles, 1,500 feet of elevation within those 2 miles later, I finally was in a spot on top of a mountain where I had service and I could connect to the live stream. None of my footage was used in the live stream. But I had the opportunity while I was there to just get some footage to make sure that that moment was captured. And on my way up, this powerful moment is one that I'll remember forever. Seeing two runners. First, Dan Green, followed very shortly by Courtney Dauwalter. Take a look here.
Comes the pack.
Hello.
Good work, good work. Keep pushing. It's Courtney Dauwalter, the legend.
Big old descent, eh?
Now, I had no idea at the time that these two runners were going to have opposite finishes of this race. At mile 108, after an amazing effort, a blazing pace, Courtney Dauwalter decided to back out of the race. Alternately, Dan Green kept pushing at a violent pace, sleeping less than 30 minutes to be crowned the number one finisher at the Cocodona 250 and set a new course record. This is not an easy race. This isn't something that people drop out because they're injured. Although that happened. You know, a huge favorite in this race, favored to win, Jack Scott from the UK, got injured and I think at around mile 90 had to bow out because of hamstring issues. There were other runners who I don't know why they dropped out, and it could be injury. It could be just the mental wear and tear of running a race that they were not expecting to have snow, rain, mud, cold temperatures. And that can play into your mind if you're not prepared for it.
How you feeling?
Better that I can feel my hands now.
Yeah, it's warmer.
Yeah, warming up now. They were like, I couldn't feel them at all.
As I'm looking at this top group, and they're just barely coming out of a hard climb and a nasty rain and hailstorm, this was the first time that they were starting to get feeling back in their fingers. Take a look at these runners.
There was a while there I couldn't close my fingers.
Hello,
How's it going?
how are you?
Hey, it's warmer and you got a little bit of a downhill, so.
Take
You
this.
had fingers.
Take this every day.
The rain was pretty cool.
Sure.
There was like, I was like, is this snow? But it was sleet.
Yeah.
Like accumulated up there, which is kind of wild. I've never seen Crown King like moody like this in the cloud.
Well, it kind of keeps coming.
Yeah.
It was so fun to see some of those runners, but Pal Ruiz, Mika Thews, Jack Scott, Courtney Dauwalter, these are all people who are at the front of the pack looking great, did not finish. One of my favorite interviews was seeing the King of Moab, Max Jolliffe, as he was coming down the hill, but he wasn't looking too great. Check out this footage.
Max, how you feeling, man?
Was that?
How you feeling?
I'm dealing with some it's pretty heavy chest congestion.
Oh,
I don't know if you can.
do you think it's the weather?
No, I'm just sick. If I was smart, I probably wouldn't have started this race, but you know what? Just rolling with
You got to
punches.
do it. You got to do it.
Yeah. So just trying to just roll with the cards that were dealt, and it just means going a little slower on day one, and hopefully work through this.
That's awesome.
We keep moving good tomorrow and the next day. It's a long race.
Yeah, you got plenty of time and
Yeah.
got a nice little downhill here, so enjoy it into Crown King.
Thank you. Do you know how many miles?
It's about 2 miles.
So you can see there that Max had a nasty cough and admitted himself that he probably shouldn't have started this race. And I think that's what makes it so hard when you compare some of these people. Mika dropped out at mile 35. There was something wrong that she wasn't able to tackle. Max made it to, I think, mile 237. And he was so close to the finish line. I mean, that is wild to be just miles away from the finish line and have to be taken to the hospital for health reasons. Now, obviously, every runner here wants to be able to run again. Nobody is running to death. except for maybe Cam Haynes, who I also ran into. Check this out.
Cam, how you feeling, man? Looking good.
Good. How are you?
You warming up?
Yeah, feeling good.
Good. Got 2 miles out.
Oh yeah. Good deal. Is it all on this road?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
So a little bit of downhill, back and forth.
Yeah.
But,
Thanks.
all right, keep grinding.
Hey buddy, thank you.
Now, Cam is not only running this race, almost 60 years old. There was at one point where everyone's pretty sure that he broke his foot. This was recorded before the finish, and so there's a lot more stories that'll come out of this. But I was riding so high on this experience that I had to share it. But, you know, thinking of Cam breaking his foot, but still promoting a book that released while he was doing this, he had to finish. There was no choice. Broken foot, exhaustion, bad weather. But why is he able to finish and not somebody else? Why not the professionals like Courtney and Max? Were they not able? And each one is going to have their own reason and their own story, and that will depend on them. And no judgment. But I just think that when you as an individual face failure, you have to ask yourself, what am I doing with this? Am I learning from it and putting a notch on that grit ladder of just how to become more resilient? Because that's the next thing I want to talk about. We're gonna push goals to the end, but are you born with grit, or is it something that can only be developed? Because my theory is it can only be developed. You might be born with a higher pain tolerance, and you can deal with blisters on your feet or a broken foot. But the ability to have the resilience to push through those experiences only comes from previous experiences that you've gone through. Let me give you an example. Now, I don't know the full story. I really hope to have the full story one day. But Jenny Chisholm and her kids, Elliot and Brody, were all running the Cocodona 250. And after Brody and Elliot are 18 and 17 respectively, so young kids. They haven't had the life experiences that their 49-year-old mom has. And both of the young boys, even though I saw Brody, here, take a look at this.
That rain was insane.
You weren't expecting the cold. Or maybe you were, but maybe not this much.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's actually like some snow back there too.
So that's Brody. He's in such a good mood right now. Does not finish. Elliot does not finish. And at taping, Jenny was so close to finishing. I'm hoping that by the time I'm done with this, I can go and confirm that she had finished the race. But my theory is this, that if you're a parent, a mom, and you've raised kids, you've birthed kids, you've dealt with life, when you're faced with some mud, that's no big deal. If you've faced with loss in your life, if you've done something so physical that it's pushed you to the limits and you kept going, when you face cold temperatures and rain, it's nothing. It's no big deal. You keep moving forward. And my theory is that because Jenny has that experience, because she is a mom, she is able to finish this and be the example to her kids that, anyone could hope for. So I've been very impressed with that story. I can't wait to hear more about it. And Jenny, I would love to have you and your family on the podcast. I am so impressed with that story. But jumping back to Cam, who is out promoting his book, Undeniable, has to be undeniable. He has faced tough times, losing friends, being in tough situations, and getting out of it. He's going to keep grinding. He's going to keep hammering because of that experience and that grit that he's already developed. So the question is, what are you doing to develop that grit? In our past episode with Phil Case, we talked about that you can only develop grit through experience and doing something outside your comfort zone, something that was 100% chance of survival, but 50% chance of completion. Which brings me to my last topic I want to talk about is setting a crazy goal. You know, in the book Good to Great by Jim Collins, he talks about the BHAG, the big, hairy, audacious goal. Something that makes you a little nervous and that gives your stomach the butterflies. That type of goal. And I've been thinking a lot this week about what that means to me. And that's why when I heard Nick Baumgartner's story, and I'd recommend go get his book. Nick, let's do an episode, please. It was so cool to meet you. I was holding back tears the whole time as a 40-year-old casual recreational athlete who just has that fight still in him and that burn. It was so inspiring to hear his story, Nick's story about getting a gold medal at 40 years old. And he talked about setting crazy goals. So one thing that he did say is you have to be careful who you share your goals with. In fact, sometimes it's best not to share your big crazy goals because the quickest way to not accomplish a goal is to have somebody that you love and trust discourage or say something negative about your goals. So sometimes it's okay to keep things to yourself. So I'm going to share one that my wife gave me just this morning of her big, hairy, audacious goal that I am super excited about. And I'm going to share on her behalf because I will fight tooth and nail to protect her from any of the haters that say this can't be done or you shouldn't do that. But our birthdays are 2 days apart and we always plan a big weekend. For the last few years, we've been doing Spartan races in Big Bear, California, which has been a blast. But this year, as we've been working on different things, we were trying to think of alternative. And I had some buddies who wanted to go do rim to rim to rim at the Grand Canyon. And this is a 48-mile, over 10,000 feet of elevation gain and descent that is grueling. I've had friends do it in 9 hours and 30 minutes, and I've had friends do it in 14 hours. And so there's quite a wide range depending on your skill level. Well, my wife wanted to come and do rim to rim. But because that is a logistical nightmare to have one group doing R3 and one person doing rim to rim, she decided today that no, we're not going to go this year. We're going to go next year, and she is going to do rim to rim to rim, R3, and we're going to do it together next year for our birthdays. And it hit me so hard. I was so excited for her. A year ago, she did her first 5K Spartan race, and she worked so hard. But I watched her fall down and get back up and keep going, and it took her a long time, but she did it. And if you would have asked me last year, could she have done rim to rim to rim? I would have said, no way. Let's work on something else. But today, after the progress that she's had over the grit notches that she has created, I believed her so much. I am so excited to see what happens over the next year as she accomplishes this. So what is your crazy goal? What are you going to do that just makes you nervous? That is just so crazy. If you want love and support, put it down in the comments. If you're not ready to share, I get it. But like and subscribe, put your comments down, and let's create an environment where people can just feel loved and supported on their big, crazy goals. Because some of you are going to do your first marathon. Some of you are going to do a 50K or 100K. Others, I'm catching a bug. I might have to do a 200 plus ultra because it was such a vibe down there. Thanks for this special episode of Mean Grit. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe below, and we'll see you next week when we meet up with Spider-Man.